Speaking Myanmar, lessons for English-speaking learners coming from and going to places. In this lesson, you'll learn the Myanmar particles that mean to come from or go to some place. You'll learn what they look like and how to pronounce them. You'll also learn where they fit into a sentence in both statements and questions. In a previous lesson, I discussed the subject and object marker particles, ga and go. This is one of the features of the Myanmar language that's significantly different than English. For example, in the sentence that we used in that lesson, I called ao win. These two particles identify myself as the subject of this sentence and ao win as the object. Now, I bring this up for a very important reason in this lesson on particles, for coming from and going to. Now, the reason I bring it up is because we're going to use the exact same particles in this lesson, but they have a totally different meaning. So, the ga particle is used when coming from some place, and go identifies where someone or something is going. So let's start with some sentences we might use if we're coming from someplace. So here's the particle for coming from someplace. A simple sentence might be, he came from the store. You would say, tu zega lare. As in all Myanmar sentences, the verb comes last, but take special notice in this example where we place the word from. It follows the place that someone or something came from. In this sentence, a person, he, is coming from some place, the store. So let's look at another example. In this next sentence, this is my friend from Malaysia. I'm identifying where someone has traveled from, or maybe is from originally. The sentence would read, Da Malaysia ga tingay jimba. Once again, the from particle follows the noun or the place that my friend is from. But how would you use this in a question form to ask where something or someone is from? Let's look at that. So I'll use this question, where are you coming from? Now, this is a common phrase used in Myanmar, often asked when meeting someone. And in Myanmar, you would say, Bega ladale. Literally, it means which from come, but in this context, it really indicates where from come. So in a question, where do you put the particle? It immediately follows the word for which. Okay, now let's look at the particle for going to someplace. Remember, the particle for going to someplace is go or go. I'm going to use this sentence. They went to Africa. Now, in the Myanmar language, you might read this sentence this way. Duro Africa go tuare. Just as in the case of the particle for coming from, this particle is placed right after the noun, the place something or someone is going to. But there's a caveat. In everyday speech, this particle isn't usually used. Instead, you would just say, Tudo Africa tuare. It would be implied that that's where they're going to. Now, you're going to use the same process when asking questions. Let's take the question, where are you going to? A very common question used in everyday speech in the Myanmar language. While you might read it, Be go tuamale, When speaking, it's just common to hear be tua male. All right, let's review this lesson. In the way of review, there's one particle used to mean coming from someplace, and another particle that means going to someplace. The particle for coming from someplace is pronounced ga or ga, depending on the syllable preceding, and the particle for going to someplace is pronounced go or go. Both particles are placed directly after the noun, identifying some place in a sentence, or after the question word which in a question. I've got to tell you, there's one caveat. In all of these examples, something or someone has always come from or gone to a place. But what if you're going to visit a person? Or what if you receive a letter from a friend? Then these particles won't work. And I'll cover that in the next lesson.